the guys from Ping, they've kind of shown me how much the equipment matters.
I just love that I can hit any shot I kind of want.
We're going to be able to tell some fun stories about what goes on here to help golfers play better golf.
Welcome back to the Ping Proving Grounds podcast. I'm Shane Bacon. That is Marty Jertson. We don't have a guest today, Marty. You know what that means?
We get to deep dive on some technical stuff.
We got some Q&As. We sent a thing out on social media and said, if you have questions for us about equipment or some of the stuff we talked about on the podcast, answer. We'll do it again in a few months, so keep an eye out on socials for that. The first question that was on Facebook from Brian, I liked because I think you and I are now in this camp together. It says, I don't know if it was talking about you, Marty, play two drivers. Please describe the differences in the drivers. We now play two drivers in our bag, and I've been doing it now for a couple of months, so I'll let you start on terms of the differences in your drivers.
Yeah, no, it's pretty fun. I mean, one is to maximize distance for the most part. So it's 45 and 3/4 inches in length. That's my gamer, full max send driver. And then I was looking at data, Shane, I think we talked about this on the pod, which showed that for players who hit the ball 300 yards or further, you hit your 3-wood off the tee on average about 90% of the time. And for my own personal courses I play back home in Arizona, it's even a little bit higher, like 95% of the time I hit off the tee. So I built a 12-degree G430 Max, put it in the...
Is your first one a 10K?
It's 10K.
Yeah, your gamer's a 10K.
10K, yeah. 10.5 in the big minus, keeps the face a little bit open, built to maximize distance. Then, we're kind of calling this the Thriver, 3-wood driver.
I like that.
So 12-degree Max. In the flat dot position, Tour 2.0 black 75X, 43 inches.
Okay.
And it's not built to maximize distance. It's because I hit it off the tee. I tee it really low and just kind of chip it down there. It's kind of like an anti-anxiety club for me. We built yours pretty similar.
Almost the exact same. I mean, I was going to say 43. It's 12 degrees. I love it. It's funny. The club I play in Connecticut, the first par 5 you play, you kind of send it over the trees,
yep.
And if you have to get one to be able to go for in 2 because there's water short of the green. First time I had the second driver, what'd you call it, the Thriver?
Thriver.
First time I had the Thriver in the bag, I hit a good one over the trees, but it's a downhill lie. So the ball's kind of sitting kind of
yep.
above your feet, but you're kind of below it.
Yep.
And I pulled the 12-degree out. I was like, let's just see. Let's
yep.
see if I can hit this shot, which is tough. And I hit a good shot and hit it in one of the greenside bunkers and got it up and down for birdie. And I told myself, if you can hit it here, you can kind of hit it anywhere. And it's such a great club. You can tee it low
yep.
and kind of squeeze it out there. I've also noted that I can hit it. I can tee it a little higher, and it promotes my draw.
Absolutely.
Which I don't love hitting, so it's an easier club for me to draw.
Yes, totally. So, yeah, you can use it. It just has a lot of diversity to it. I think the fun thing for the listener to tease out from this is that your priority in your bag should be built based on how far you hit it. This is one of those really cool insights from big data, because without big data, we couldn't have answered this question.
Totally.
And so I think it's something. It's not if you don't drive the ball, let's say 270 or further, it's probably not the right thing to consider, because you need to hit your 3-wood off the ground a lot, whether it's a long par 3, second shot into par 4, second shot into par 5. But the longer you hit it, the less you should prioritize 3-wood off the ground, because par 5s, I'm hitting, 3-iron in, 4-iron, long irons in, things of that nature. And I have a lot of tee balls I need to hit at like 275, 280, where a big driver, the dispersion's going to be a lot tighter than playing a 3-wood in that scenario.
I heard players at the Masters that were putting a second driver in
yep.
because, again, some of the holes squeeze in at 315,
yep.
320. So you're seeing even tour guys do this as well. I think this is going to be the next thing. You think about the iteration through the bag. 7-wood was hot a couple of years ago, and I know a lot of players are
yep.
still playing it. The driving iron was really hot
yep.
a few years ago. It feels like the Thriver, if you will, is the next big thing.
Yeah, definitely. Out here on tour, it's kind of like, you can swap it out. Like
right.
Augusta, there's literally probably no 3-wood shots.
Right.
Like a 2, if you get it down there, you're going to hit an iron or something.
10T is kind of the only spot.
Yeah,
those guys hit
10T,
3-wood.
but maybe you can. That's the one where you can take the Thriver and get a little draw spin on it.
You need to really get that dialed in to your repertoire. Okay, there you go. That's the two drivers, and again, just something to play with. I mean, I love the added loft. If I'm not driving it great, I'll use it off the tee.
Yeah.
Even on holes, I typically go with the gamer. So it's versatile, and I love that. Cameron on X. We call it X or Twitter? What do we call it? X.
Formerly known as Twitter.
We'll do it. Cameron said, "How does Ping help people identify what swing weight is best for them, Marty?
That's a great question. I mean, it's very fun at Ping because all of our clubs have, either CTP weights or CG shifters. We do custom weighting. So we have the ability that allows us to accommodate different shafts and lengths, but it also helps us fit for the right swing weight. So a good general rule of thumb is that a heavier swing weight is going to, for the right-handed golfer, promote a more open face to path or a little right bias, right? So let's say in a driver, you got the CG shifter that can move the left right a lot. Like it'll change it like 10 yards. But if you go a couple swing weight points heavier, that can bias your left right dispersion, say 3 or 4 yards more to the right. Or a good way to think about it is eliminate the left side a little bit. So it's going to change your face to path. So you can use it to change that. Now you want to be a little bit careful going too far. You don't want to go like super light swing weight or super heavy, because the other impact it has, it changes your face to path. Well, it also changes your low point consistency. So if you get a little too light in the irons, it can help you turn it over, but you might be a little erratic in finding the ground. You might thin one, you might fat one, things of that nature. So there's a little iterative process there in, say, irons, where your low point control is more important than a driver of optimizing the swing weight to produce a very consistent low point, right? Very consistent low point. And then we can use it a little bit to eliminate a pull or a fade and kind of dial that in. But swing weight should be used as a lever not as big as, say, the line goal or the CG shifter. It's important to keep that in mind. So you don't want to use swing weight as the first thing to go to tweak your left-right dispersion.
Are you married to a swing weight? So like if you're what are you? Do you know what you are?
Yeah, my irons are D3. I'm playing them a little bit heavier now, partly because I want to eliminate that left miss with some technique changes. And my driver's D6, which is also pretty heavy.
So if you switched irons or you transitioned to another set of irons, would that change?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it would. Now, if I go hit irons that are D1 or D2 now, I will pull them, even with the same specs, same line goal, same shaft. I'll pull them, and I'll be a little erratic in my low point.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it won't find the centeredness of contact a little bit. But I think the big thing with swing weight is don't go too far, like a couple points here or there. It's not one of those things you want to go erratically heavy or erratically light in some of that nature. Now, the other way to use swing weight in a driver is there's an optimal head weight.
Okay.
And swing weight is swing weight is kind of the proxy for that, which maximizes distance for an individual golfer. So that's something else to play with. Some of our fitters out there have these swing weight kits, and they can go play around with and try a driver at D3 and D5. Again, it's a lever to kind of fine-tune your left-right, but be careful with it with low point control on your irons.
I was thinking about the driver in terms of this because, you and I talk a lot about fitting and getting fit for the right club, and you think about loft being an option. You think about shaft. You think about length in terms of the driver. I know you talk a lot about that in swing weight as well. Is swing weight down the list in terms of things people should be thinking about when they're trying to tweak their gamer?
Yeah, it is. It is. I think a good way is, like, let's say somebody's between. You put the CG shifter on the driver in the draw, and you're overdrawing it, or you have that little miss to the left. You put it back in the neutral, and it's kind of a little right bias. Well, what's your option? You can play around with the sleeve to kind of dial that in, or you can play around with the swing weight and just bias the swing weight a little bit, and it's totally fine. Let's say you get fit with a driver, our stock's D3, and you're like, oh, I just want to barely eliminate that left miss. Just order the driver at D4. It's one of those things you can just use to kind of hedge a miss tendency.
Interesting. See, I mean, there's just so many options. It's crazy. Thomas said, can you go through the different settings on the driver loft sleeve and their effects on ball flight so us amateurs can use that to our advantage?
Oh, I love that question. So, yeah, trajectory tuning sleeve. We have 8 positions. The drivers out in the stores and in most settings, they're going to come in our default position, which has a dot to it. We call it the dot position. And then we have a small minus and a big minus, and then, or a small minus and a big minus, a small plus and a big plus. The small plus is going to add 1 degree of loft.
And by the way, just so people that are listening, when you unscrew the driver and you take it off, it tells you this on the sleeve.
Yes.
So outside of just the dots and the pluses and the minuses, it'll actually tell you once you take it off what it's actually doing loft-wise.
Yes, and we did that on purpose so you can see, okay,
Right.
this is how much the loft is changing. So we have 5 marked positions. Then we actually have 3. It's kind of like going to In and Out, the secret menu.
You get animal-style ping
yeah,
driver?
you get the secret menu. So we have 3 secret menu options we'll talk about, but we have a small minus and a big minus, and that changed the loft by 1 degree and 1.5. Now, this is important because you can use loft to change your launch and spin. So if you go down, for every 1 degree you change your driver loft, you will tweak your launch by about 0.6 degrees.
Okay.
So it's not 1-to-1, it's about 0.6, and you change your spin by about 250 RPMs. So this is a really good way. Let's say in the old days before the sleeve, you'd either have to go from a 9 to 10.5.
Right.
Your optimal could be right in between, and you're stuck. Now it's a way to get super dialed with your launch conditions to unlock distance. So, or you can use the big plus and the big minus position. Those change the loft by plus or minus 1.5 degrees. Now, if you go to the secret menu option, Shane, those we have a flat dot position, and that changes the sleeve from the more upright position, and it goes, we have a 1.5 degrees of tilt, but you flip it all the way around and you go 3 degrees flat. So we have a flat dot position. This is like what I play my Thriver in. I think we built
Right.
yours also. And that'll make the driver 3 degrees flatter, which can slightly open the face. It can change centerness of contact for a player, look a little bit different. If you're playing a longer length, this is a great option. We've had some players do that on tour. They're playing a 46-inch drivers, go in the flat dot position. So it's a great option to kind of tune your centeredness of contact and tweak your left-right bias to go in those flatter positions. So we have a flat dot, then we have a secret menu, small minus, secret menu, big minus, which are 1 degree stronger and weaker, also about 2 degrees flatter.
Is there like a chart online or anything people could dive into that tell you all of this stuff? Is there
Yes,
something
absolutely.
online?
On our website, you can see all the positions, and then our fitters out there in Ping Copilot, we have all kinds of charts which show all the different positions.
We'll, by the way, we'll tweet that out when the episode
Absolutely.
comes out as well, so you have an idea of that. All right, so we're moving from X to Instagram. Most comments on Instagram not worthy of putting on the podcast. These are the good ones that we pulled, by the way. This says, approach to blended iron sets, where to consider the transition point and how to mix precision and distance models. So basically when you're blending the iron set, when do you go from blueprint beyond, or when do you kind of mix the blueprints? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, I think a good way to think about our iron models is we have the models that you, the player, bring the distance to the table. This is I-230, Blueprint S, Blueprint T.
Right.
And then we have some great, really cool tools to be able to figure out where you blend those, because 230 goes higher, Blueprint S goes kind of medium height, Blueprint T goes a little bit lower. So we have some great tools in Ping Copilot which can look at your land angle. And we have some really cool algorithms in there that are kind of vetted by how our tour players blend their sets.
Okay.
And it says, okay, let's look at the land angle. And when the land angle starts to get a little shallow for that player's club head speed, let's bump them up with the iron model. If they're in Blueprint T, we'll go to Blueprint S. If they're in Blueprint S, we'll go to I-230. That's a great way to blend our precision irons. But then we have distance irons, and a good one to blend over there is like our I-530.
Right.
That's where the club head is built more like a metal wood. The face flexes more. You're going to get more ball speed, more distance out of it. I think a good way is where your iron, your gapping starts to bunch. And again, we have some great predictive algorithms in Ping Copilot which can help determine where that happens exactly. But let's say you're a player, you get your set, and you start to hit your 5-iron and your 6-iron, or your 4-iron and your 5-iron too close together from a carry distance standpoint. That's where it's time to start looking at a set that infuses more distance, whether that's I-530, G430, G730.
Didn't Sahith Theegala not too long ago? He had 2 3-irons in the bag, or 2 4-irons in the bag, right? But they were just different sets.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So they obviously flew different. They had different trajectory, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I personally do that.
Okay.
I play an I-530 4-iron that is stronger lofted. Obviously, we have different loft configurations, built more like a crossover with our Tour 2.0 shaft in it. And I play a Blueprint S 4-iron.
Okay.
So I play 2 4-irons, but my I-530, this may sound crazy, it's my 250 club. I fly at 250.
Okay.
Yeah, but my Blueprint S, I fly 230, 232 at stock.
How many players, I mean, I know you don't know the exact number, but how many tour players now do you feel like play blended iron sets? Do you think it's 60, 70%?
Yeah, I think in our blueprints, I think Austin Eckroat's a good example there. Blueprint T all the way down through the 4-iron, then he switched to Blueprint S 3-iron. So and then we have other players that switch in the 6-7-iron. I play the Blueprint T in the pitching wedge only. I like that
right?
Smaller pitching wedge. I like the turf interaction, a little knifier, right? And that's what I like, especially in Arizona. It's kind of firm conditions in the springtime. So you have some players. I mean, I'm on one end. I split it barely. One club over there. And then you have others that are splitting it like at the 3-iron, and then some split at 6 and 7. So Blueprint and I-230, we built those to be blended.
Yeah, I mean that's what I have. I have the I-234 iron, and then have Blueprint S, the rest of the way. So I mean, I'm in that category for sure.
Yeah, and we configure the lofts so they're the same amongst all those sets. So you get trajectory differences built based on the face structure design, and then our Blueprint Ts are also by standard they're a little bit shorter length, which is more PGA Tour average in terms of the lengths, and that gives a little lower trajectory as well.
So you've got 2 drivers, 3 sets of irons in your bag. Is that right?
Yes.
3 sets of irons. I mean, I would love to talk to a random caddy to get your bag at a club, and they're going, "What 4-iron do I hand you?" Here? So, I mean, just real quick, just to kind of answer the question, you feel like the transition points are either at the 3 and 4, or a lot of the time around that 6 or 7 iron.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, well, it's highly varied. It's highly varied on the PGA Tour between Blueprint S, Blueprint T, and I-230. But I think to answer the question that came in is when do you transition to to a forgiveness set? And our forgiveness sets are generally those that are also going to infuse more distance, and it's going to be where you start to get that bunching.
Makes a lot of sense.
Where you start to get that bunching, but you don't want to transition to a high lofted fairwood or hybrid. Again, I'm going to defer to Ping Copilot because we have this great tool called the Gapping app in there. Go ask your fitter to put you on it, and that can help you decode where exactly you should do that.
Smart stuff there from Marty. All right, Carl says, you spoke on an early episode about Ballnamic being able to do a yardage card. Is it available to the public yet? This is something I used at the U.S. Amateur last year.
That's right. Yeah, no, we made Shane one of these for Cherry Hills.
By the way, I just want you to know I've probably had 10 people ask me on Instagram over the months to send a picture of it because they're so interested.
Yeah.
So I always send them a pic.
It is sweet. We don't have it available for our consumers yet, but stay tuned. Watch this space. It is a super valuable tool. I mean, I think it's the tour players kind of have a sense for how much the wind's going to affect their ball, but unless you're out here doing it all day every day, it's hard to know exactly. I think a lot of people are like, oh, it's a 1 club wind or a 2 club wind. Well, on tour, and this is what I've learned playing in the tour events I've played in, is that it's better to play golf with like one number in mind. I'm going to play this shot 156.
Okay.
So I do a lot of plays like calculations. Okay, I'm here at sea level. It's the temperature's this. The wind's hurting, it's quartering, 15 miles an hour, and I'm going to hit my flighted trajectory. I do all these little calculations you can do quick, and it helped you figure out how to do this when you played the US AM in Denver when it was hot, right? The ball's going to fly far up there, and the wind affects it less, which is very interesting. When I played golf in Denver, I make that wind sheet that you used, and the wind, if you're playing into like a 15-mile-an-hour headwind, it impacts the ball literally half as much as at sea level. So the wind affects us based on the air density. So a lot of fun, but we are working on this. Hope to pass on this solution to the consumer soon.
Hang close, Carl. We'll get that to you soon. All right, Jason said, what type of golfer does the E-grind suit?
Ooh, E-grind. So the E-grind is our I2 grind, right? E stands for I2. It has the dish and the sole, which is really good out of the
cool,
bunker.
By the way, to look at. I love messing around with that in Phoenix.
Tons of character to it, and I the big thing behind the E-grind is the neck, the hosel transition. So it looks like it has a lot of offset, but the hosel tapers in. It gets really sharp. And the secret to this, and you got to give credit to Karsten for working with the tour players back then on both the philosophy and then proving this out, is that in the bunker, right when that club enters the sand, it acts like it has very, very low bounce, like very sharp. So the club, right when it enters the sand, digs, and it's very knifey, right? It's like when you put your hand out the window and you're going to turn it this way and this way and this way and this way, and you get that kind of sensation where the club's going to go down in the sand and dig at the very beginning. But then instantaneously, all that bounce on the trailing edge kicks in, and the dish and the sole affects the fluid flow of the sand going through the sole. And kicks in. It helps you scoot the club forward through the sand. So you get this early dig, late glide, and it makes it the ultimate bunker club. So the E grind is great if you're looking for something that's going to be really good out of the bunker. Let's say you play a golf course and you have a lot of bunker shots. The course is very protected by bunkers. You're in the bunker a lot. You need to have a lot of greenside versatility. The downside of the E grind, where it might not be as good for some players, which we have some players that have used the I2 for a long time, they don't hit a lot of full shots with it.
Okay.
If your priority is going to be greenside performance, bunker performance, and manipulating the face a lot, that's the E grind. Take a look at it.
So it's more around the greens. So
Green
somebody like
side.
you said, a lot of bunkers on the golf course, maybe not the longest golf course in the world. You maybe want to get it up and down, try to make birdie on par fives or get it up and down to save par.
Exactly.
So I mean, it sounds like what you're saying is it could kind of go both ways. It could be a low handicap player that, again, is trying to make birdies on par fives and get it up and down to save par, and also a high handicap player that's playing a golf course where they do have a lot of bunkers and they're going to be in a lot of bunkers.
Yeah, so a high handicap player is a good use case. A high handicap player sometimes is trying to figure out how to fill their bag, right? Where they maybe they don't need 14 clubs with all this tight spacing because they don't hit it that far. But how do you supplement and adjunct those 14 clubs? One is a chipper. It's a great option for short game performance, and two, you might choose to play 260 degrees or 258 degrees. One that you're going to use for full shots, basic chipping, and one that's the ultimate bunker club, the E grind. Then let's say you're a better player and you're really good hitting. This is not me, but let's say you're really good at hitting your 56 degree or your 54 as an approach shot from any yardage. I mean, I have a hard time like dialing it down. I'm going to hit my 60 when it comes to that. But that player can use the E grind with great greenside performance.
Interesting. Now you're going to have 260 degrees in your bag too, to go along with all your other stuff. Slight Dogleg, by the way, that's the username, says, why does Ping offer so many counterbalance shaft options, and what is the benefit of those?
Ooh, great question. Yeah, so we've done counterbalance shafts for a long time. It's kind of in our name of our Alta CB. CB stands for counterbalanced. And the reason why we do it is because you can make the head heavier. So when you counterbalance the shaft and you don't change the head weight, and you kind of close your eyes and feel the club's going to feel lighter to you because the center of gravity of the whole system, the whole club moves closer to your hands. So it kind of tricks your hands and your feel to feel lighter. So then you can put weight back in the head to get it back to feeling like the normal swing weight. Well, the benefit now is that you can play a heavier head. A heavier head at the same shaft length is really good because a heavier head makes the driver more forgiving. It allows you to have more moment of inertia. In the design world, we're fighting for every 1 gram. So if you can give the designer 1 gram, they're having a good day. Okay, so we can make the heavier head to boost the inertia. That's number one. And number two, we can better maximize the momentum. And momentum is mass times velocity. That's that physics principle. So if you have more momentum, you can transfer more momentum to the ball. This is called impulse momentum in the physics world, to get more ball speed. So you get this double whammy benefit: higher inertia and more ball speed. That's why counterbalance shafts are in our ecosystem and have kind of become popular in the aftermarket world.
Marty, I would listen to you talk about almost everything in terms of technology. Very, very well said. That was very interesting. There you go. I mean, if you're not getting something out of this, I don't know what you're doing. There you go, slight dog leg. All right, Zach had a question about questions to ask during a fitting. And, a fitting can be anything. It can be driver, it can be putting. I kind of wanted to focus on irons. So questions maybe to ask as you're going through an iron fitting as Ping continues to introduce more and more sets of irons in their arsenal.
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. I think hopefully in what we've been able to do on this podcast, Shane, is to give the consumers a lot of questions to go ask during a fitting and really empower them. When it comes to an iron fitting, I think do you need, ask the fitter whether you need distance infusion or whether you, the player, are bringing the speed. So that'll kind of put you into those buckets of,
It kind of puts you into two
it
buckets,
puts
right?
you into two buckets. So that's number one. And then on top of that, I think a big thing is, are you generating enough spin with your irons, right? So we use 7 irons. Our AFS 3D fitting club allows you to capture ball speed, launch, and spin with your 7 iron, whichever model you're going to hit. And you want that fitter to really understand, are you generating enough spin? Are you getting, and that's going to help you drive the peak height and the landing angle. Again, we have great tools in Ping Copilot which educate the fitter to understand that. For your specific ball speed, are you generating enough spin? So you and I, we can generate around 7,000 spin with our 7 iron because we're faster ball speed. And a lot of people out there, consumers or fitters, might think, oh, everyone should be able to generate 1,000 times the club number for spin, or 7,000 in your 7 iron. That is not the case. If you don't have the speed that we do, you might be generating 5,500 RPM spin, and that's actually relatively high for your club head speed. So have the fitter tell you about the spin, use our tools in Ping Copilot, use our spin guide chart, and determine, am I generating enough spin? It's very easy to go into an iron fitting and hit an iron, and it's going to go far, but the spin is too low. You might buy those irons. You're not going to have the land angle. You're going to have gapping issues. You're going to not be able to stop it on the golf course. We hear it all the time on the podcast where our team here and our tour players are looking to get more spin on the irons, right? So you spin the irons enough, and then what is the longest iron I should play? That's the next question. And again, we have some great tools, the gapping app. If you put in, our fitter puts in your ball speed, launch, and spin with your 7 iron. You just say your AFS 3D. They help you understand your spin rate. You put that in, and we'll be able to determine and give you a really good starting point. Should the 7 iron be the longest iron you should play? Should it be the 6? Should it be the 5? Should it be the 4? How to build that bag. I think those are 2 key questions to ask when you go in for an iron fitting.
I think, and to the question from Zach, I mean, I think something that's very important is asking, like, you telling stuff to the fitter.
Absolutely.
How do you hit shots? The way you miss it. What do you not like to see misses? And the other thing I would say is to be honest to your golf game.
Yes.
I see so many people go get fit or talk about fittings. They're over swinging. They're swinging too hard. It's really being honest to the way you play golf when you're not around somebody. Because again, anybody that sits there and hits golf balls in front of somebody with a computer next to them is going to want to gain a couple more yards on their 7 iron.
Yeah.
But you've got to go take the clubs and play golf the way you typically play golf. So I think the key to fitting is to truly be honest to your own golf game.
Yeah, and I think a good tool for this, if we see it a lot, we love this when customers come in and they have some stats tracking. So folks will come in,
like
and
Arcos
be like,
or something like that.
Yeah, look what's happening in my Arcos data. Check out what's happening over the last 3 months here. Look at my miss percentage short with my irons. Look at my left-right bias, and you can. Those are really good clues on a line goal issue, a core strategy issue, keeping the player honest. We see it on tour where we've interviewed players and they have statisticians feeding their practice plan of what they're going to do for the week, or our team will look at the data, make a decision with their coach and their team on maybe an equipment change for a certain golf course or a tendency they're seeing in their game. So these tools are available to everyday golfer. Use Arcos, use another tool, keep those stats. Even let's say you're considering equipment 3 to 6 months out, get onboarded to a stats tracking app, and that'll help keep you honest.
Yeah, so track your numbers before you go get clubs, and then you'll have obviously a
absolutely.
lot more information. All right, last one from Josh. He said, if you play a spinnier ball, will a helping wind have a bigger impact on carry distance?
If you play a spinnier ball,
If you play a spinnier ball,
yes.
will a
great
helping
question.
wind have a bigger impact on carry
Yes,
distance?
so a spinnier ball, which again we need to get into this nuance here. A spinnier ball doesn't always fly higher. So this is the secret sauce of Ballnamic, is that sometimes you can have a spinny ball. There's kind of a famous one out here on tour where it was very spinny initial flight, but then the players took it out on the course and it flew low. So it's really, I think we can use spinny ball as a proxy for a high flying ball. So does a high flying ball, which is generally a spinnier ball, will do this, more affected by the wind or have more help in a carry? Absolutely. And it will both help the carry distance with the helping wind, but it will also hurt you more into the wind. this is why, Shane, I think I do this. I play a
you-
spinnier, higher flying ball downwind, and I play a lower flying ball into the wind. If you don't have the one ball rule in effect, I highly recommend having a downwind ball and into the wind ball.
Having mixed sleeves in the bag. Marty Jertson, I'm telling you, has thought of everything within his own golf bag. There's a reason you were extremely successful outside of obviously the deep talent.
Trying to get a
what
little
were your
edge.
thoughts? Let me ask you a question. What were your thoughts on the Q&A pod? Did you like it?
I loved it. I mean, those questions are nuanced. I mean, there's right from the people, and there were some good ones. I think we should do more of this.
Yeah, we'll mix in a little bit of this. Obviously, we've done a great job of kind of integrating, people that work at Ping on the podcast,
Yes.
and Ping professionals on the podcast. And I think every few months the Q&A is a good one, because this is what I hear from people that listen to the pod is they have these types of questions, and it's nice to dive into them.
Yeah, super nuanced. I mean, obviously, I think what we're trying to do here on the podcast is make the complex simple.
Yep.
Both for our consumers to understand what the options are. Now with adjustability, you can do things on your own. A lot of people are getting launch monitors at their house. How can we help them understand some changes? And then, I think I love those questions of how should I prepare for a fitting? What questions should I ask? Because it's a big investment. It's like a big investment to your game. Maybe you're only going out there to look at new irons every 2 or 3, 4 years or so. How do you make the right decision? And there's some things you can do to prepare to help your fitter help you.
By the way, if you have a kind of a question to follow up on any of this stuff on the podcast, you can always hit us up on Twitter.
Definitely.
Marty's good about answering questions there, and I try to answer them as well. Not like you'd ask me anything, but Marty Jertson, always good diving deep into the questions from listeners. This is the Ping Proving Grounds podcast.